hope you
Okay. Hi everyone, I'm Oscar. This is Matt. This is O. Today we'll be talking about proactivity. Okay. So, how many of you have ever had a bad grade or an unsatisfactory grade? What did you all do to improve it? Right? I'm sorry.
say I
Did you guys ever blame the professor or teacher?
Yes.
Did that ever work?
Yes.
That's interesting. Okay. Okay. But what are some strategies to improve your grade when you're failing?
Put more time in.
Okay.
Talk with the teacher, see how you can improve.
Okay. Any others?
Alternate way of studying.
Okay. So for the most part, what I'm hearing here is that you guys take responsibility for your grades, not blaming anyone for your grades. That's what being proactive is all about. When one is proactive, one has the ability to respond to external stimuli with internal power. Internal power is a combination of conscience, self-awareness, imagination, and independent will. External stimuli, just those consequences that you can't control. So past events, future events, negative feedback, positive feedback, anything that can, make an impact on your mindset. And then the way I see it is that when we want to be proactive, we want to change the road. We have to figure out a way to make an impact on the road and not let the road make an impact on us. As Cody states here. This should be on your paper. In the words of Stephen Covey, our behavior is a function of our decisions, not our conditions. So what I think about when I hear that,
Thank you.
well,
Is there an extra one in anywhere?
Do you want the
Here, I don't want to take
this one.
Yes, I'm in. Thank you.
Yeah, so what I think about when I read that quote right there, is that we all make decisions, and we all have to learn how to accept the consequences. In fact, we should be striving for these consequences, and not let the conditions, let our circumstances affect us. Then Covey asserts that there are two kinds of people in this world, those who are proactive and those who are reactive. Can one of you read down the two columns to compare both behaviors?
Okay. Proactive, responding to external stimuli with internal power. Act, proactive, language, I will. Circle of influence, be, correct mistakes, sustain commitments and goals. Reactive, on the other hand, is conforming to deterministic beliefs, acted upon, reactive language, if only. Circle of concern, have, yield to mistakes, disregard commitments.
Perfect. So now that you have those terms fresh in your mind, Matt will ask you an important question.
Hey everyone, what is every student's evil villain when it comes to our study habits? Yes. Procrastination is the action of delaying or postponing something. And when I was reading this chapter, or this habit, I thought about how procrastination welcomes mediocrity to dictate our habits. And mediocrity is the quality or state of being mediocre. So being proactive can impact your decision in establishing healthy habits. And what are some limitations? The way we talk to ourselves is a huge influence. So you gotta have, what Oscar was talking about, proactive language, which is a way to, how you approach your decisions and the habits. Like you talk to yourself, like I can control my own feelings. I can create an effective presentation. I would choose an appropriate response. Choose, I prefer, I will. That language comes from a basic paradigm of determinism. And the whole spirit of it is a transfer of responsibility. I am not responsible, not able to choose my response. And then, what are some proactive language you guys talk to you guys, like when you wake up in the morning? What is it that you guys, how you motivate yourself? Anyone? Personally, I count blessings, because then it makes me grateful, and that kind of drives me to kind of be in the moment and to kind of just appreciate all the little things. Anything?
I have things to get through during the day, and I need to get them done quick. So I remind myself of all the tasks that I need to get done and write everything down. It helps me to remember to get things done on time.
So that's proactive language, and there's also reactive language, which is a serious problem with reactive language, is that it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. People become reinforced in the paradigm that they are determined, and they produce evidence to support the belief. They feel increasingly victimized and out of control, not in charge of their life or their destiny. They blame outside forces, other people, circumstances, even the stars for their own situation. There's a circle of concern versus circle of influence. The circle of concern includes health, education, spiritually focusing on things you actually have no control over. And then the circle of influence, which is proactive people focus their efforts in the circle of influence. They work on the things they can do something about. They just control the controllable. And so when I think about those two influences, I think about you are who you hang out with, and do you surround yourself with people who make things happen, or do you find yourself around people who blame and make excuses? So the question that I'm gonna leave you with is, do you want to make sacrifices and be great, or do you want to just be mediocre?
Right, so I'll pick up after Matt. Proactivity is defined as our behavior as a function of our decisions and not our condition. So we can all subordinate our feelings, but not to the value. We have initiative and responsibility to make these things happen. So proactivity was defined in the chapter a lot, and we focused mostly on this circle of concern versus circle of influence. The circle of influence is where proactive people tend to live in, and reactive people tend to be in the circle of concern. The problem we face when we fall, he talked about direct control, which is problems involving our own behavior. He also talked about indirect control and no control. Indirect is coming later in the chapter, and no control is what we have no control over, basically. And our way to determine which circle of our concern is in is to distinguish between the haves and the bees. And a couple examples of that would be, in the circle of concern, they're filled with the haves, and that's, I'll be happy when I have my house paid off, or I'll have a more patient husband in the future. And the circle of influence focuses on the bees, so I can be more patient, or I'll be more wise, or setting a goal that's attainable in the current, in the now, not in the future. That's where proactive people live, and that's what the chapter focused on, and that's where he tended to put the main points and focus in on. Another big thing that he talked about, which people in the circle of concern live in, is consequence and the way that you accept these consequences. So a person who's living a reactive lifestyle would take consequence and they would avoid it, and they would run away from it, they'll deny it. Often what happens with that is it creates another problem, which is the lies that we use to cover these up. And a person who's proactive often identifies that they do have a problem, acknowledges it, and with knowledge in that they learn from it and become a better person within it. That's what being proactive is all about. Last, I'll leave you guys with a couple ways to apply being proactive. There's something I grew up learning called SMART goals. The S being specific, pick something particularly instead of a broad category, and being measurable. So choose something that you can quantify, something that's attainable. That's what the next one is. A, attainable. You should actually be able to reach your goal that you're setting. R, being realistic, be honest with yourself, be honest with how much work you put into it. And T, being timely, give each goal time, knowing that it takes time to work towards these goals and it's a stepping stool. It's not gonna come all at once unless you set small goals. Next, like Matt Ramon touched on, find the right people. Your circle matters. The people you surround yourself with tend to affect your capabilities and what you can become in life. Often, if you surround yourself with winners, it rubs off. Winning is a trait that is something that just, you can't really quantify what a win is, but losing, if you surround yourself with losers, then sorry, yeah, you get it. And
Misery loves company.
yeah. Lastly, I'd say it's all about you. No one else is going to get you where you want to go. Your friends and family, they're a support group for you, but at the end of the day, they can't go get success for you. It's all on you.
Then at the bottom of your handout here, there's a challenge that I just took from Kobe's book. It's on the 30-day test of proactivity, which you just make small commitments every day and follow through with them. And one thing that stayed in my mind from when I read it is that we should create the solution and not be the problem. Yeah. That was it.
Yes.
Do you have any questions, concerns, comments, feedback?
Can someone define proactivity as according to the book? It's also right in your face, but if you can't do it, if you can't do it, it's fine.
Taking full responsibility for your behaviors and your actions.
Anyone else?
Including self-awareness, which I think
I've got a question. Nobody else has a question? I always like to hear students' questions. They're a lot better than mine. You can turn the camera off.
Good morning.
Morning.
Before we get into it, can you guys just close your eyes for a second and just go somewhere with me real quick? Since we're around the birthdays of 22, let's just imagine it's your 22nd birthday today. You've had a long day, you've had classes, you went to work unfortunately, and little did you know that your roommates ended up inviting everybody you know into the room, your family and some people that live close by, and they threw a surprise party for you. You park your car, it's pouring rain, the wind is everywhere. You park your car, you get out, you obviously forgot an umbrella, so you just cover your face and you just start running towards your room. It's pitch black, it's raining so hard you can't even see in front of you, and all of a sudden you hear a loud noise. Fast forward 2 days. It's your funeral. A tree fell on you, and everybody is around, and everybody's very sad, and they don't know how to grieve about this. Open your eyes. At your funeral, what would you want people to be saying about you? Our habit is habit 2, and we're going to begin with the end in mind.
so now that you have that image in your head, it's a perfect way to try to understand and explain what Cubby meant by begin with the end in mind, because he describes it as having a clear understanding of what you want your destination to be, and hopefully that transitioning into how or what steps you should be taking now in order to reach that destination you envisioned, but keeping in mind your values that you had along the way. And he was very clear on what leadership and management was and the difference between them. And I think habit 3 talks about management, but he just briefly stated that management is the idea of climbing the ladder of success, and leadership was the idea of making sure that you're climbing the correct ladder of success. Because there is such a thing as being able to reach the top and climbing the ladder of success, but then realizing that once you're there, you're just satisfied to where you reach your point because you lost track. Either you lost track of your values along the way, or you never started off thinking about your values in the first place. And he also was very big on the idea that everything can be created twice, and in your handout, there's a brief explanation of what that is. The first creation is that image or vision that you create before you actually do a task, which then comes the second creation, which is the physical task of you completing that vision that you created. And in the textbook or in the book, he actually gave this really clear example of the construction of a home and how the builders don't just start off by putting together pieces of wood and just building it day by day. They start off with the blueprint, which would serve as the first creation, and it helps the builders with the guideline of what each day should look like, and that helps anticipate any mistakes that could potentially be caused. Obviously, not everything is going to be predicted with just a blueprint, but it helps serve as this extra step that you would ultimately help reduce unnecessary costs at the end of it. And it was very big on how that can be transitioned into the real life, because if you step back and create and anticipate what you want to reach, it's going to be easier for you to be successful in the long run and be able to reach your destination if you stay true to your values and keep them along the way as you go every day to your ultimate destination. And he also talked a lot about mission statements and how they can help serve as blueprints or as a guideline for your values. And I was going to talk about how that fits in.
Yeah, so as we tend to develop habit 2 and start to begin with the end in mind, we start to grow in our self-awareness. And as this kind of develops, we start to see different paradigms or patterns, habits, scripts that have been spoken over us, that we've spoken over ourselves, that don't tend to match up with our value system. And Belinda talked a lot about values. So if we go back to our early example, when Carla so eloquently explained our funeral situation, what would people want? What would we want to hear people say about us? Obviously, we wouldn't want to come to our funeral and see it from above and say, oh God, that guy was a jerk. Like, sorry, Mitch. So we obviously want them to be speaking good things over us, and we want them to be reflecting back to us what our value system was. So it's our responsibility to rewrite those stories and shift those paradigms as we kind of go forward. So Covey kind of explained that the best way to do that, the best way to begin with the end in mind, is to write a personal mission statement, like Belinda said. This is kind of like a personal constitution. It reflects what your value system is and helps you kind of frame your mind in reference to that. So if you look at your sheet, there's going to be the center of influence, which the previous group had mentioned as well. So at the center, there's obviously your core, so that's where your value system is held. And then there's 4 different branches that kind of stem off, in which we're going to be looking at. So if we start at the end of those, we can kind of gather back down into the center to find out what we actually value, what holds presence in our lives, in our value system. So these 4 are security, guidance, wisdom, and power. And there's short descriptions as well next to them. So security would be a sense of worth, identity, self-esteem, personal strengths, or even weaknesses. Guidance would be a source of direction in life, and it's surrounded by your internal frame of reference. There's wisdom, and that's your perspective on life and versus judgment, discernment, and comprehension. And then there's power, so there's capacity to act, and strength and competency to accomplish tasks. So we are going to be writing our own personal mission statements, and Covey kind of gave a few different examples of personal mission statements in his book. So I kind of cut down a little snippet of one just to kind of get your juices flowing. So he said, seek and merit divine help, never compromise with honesty, remember the people involved, hear both sides before judging, obtain counsel of others,
Defend those who are absent. Be sincere yet divisive. Do not fear mistakes. Fear only the absence of creative, constructive, and corrective responses to those mistakes. So Carla's going to explain what we're going to be doing next.
Yeah, so you guys can, if you guys don't have an extra piece of paper, you guys can flip this over. If any of you guys are familiar with the Serenity Prayer, it's one that I really like, because it just keeps me grounded and it reminds me a lot about what Mitch said and about what the last group said. It says, God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. And when I accept the things I cannot change, I'm able to move forward and be proactive and actually get things done with my day. So that's just like an idea. It can be bullet points, it can be sentences, whatever you guys feel like. Take a couple minutes to write it down, and you guys will be sharing with your partners next to each other. So, yeah, get personal with it. Yeah.
Could you explain what we're doing one more time?
Yeah, sure. It's a personal mission statement. It's facts or sentences that you would say you would want to achieve, that it's your goal. It's like the Constitution, all laws are ruled accordingly to that, so you would want to use that, and everything or all of the decisions that you take every single day, you would want to reflect it. Does it reflect my mission statement? Any other questions before you do it?
Is it more of like a spiritual response?
It can be.
It can be, if that's
Like, is that like
if
that,
that's important
that
to you.
idea, does that lead everything else? You know what I mean? It's like
It
having
does.
that type of drive, does everything else follow? Because I also want like fancy things and diamond rings, you know, but having a, does that make sense?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's more reflective of what you value. So like, I mean, obviously if you value, you know, materials, like go for it. But at the same time, it's kind of more at your core of like who you are as a person. So like if that is spirituality for you, then.
Thank you.
But they'll just be modified a little bit different, and so every time you'll just go back and change it up. And that was a big thing that Covey was talking about, that it's just a little slight modification every couple of years, but you will still remain true to it at the end of your destination.
Yeah, so take 30 seconds to a minute and just look to your partner next to you and share a thought or two about what you wrote down or where it came from, or why you value the things that you did write down.
Talents to share with others, not for you to be afraid to share. Wrote down, God gave you talents to share with others, not for you to be afraid to share.
That's what I thought.
Let's compare this. It's in my mission statement. Close out others. Focus on
Mine's really ironic.
God gave you talents to share with others, not for you to be afraid to share.
Mic drop it down. Everybody know what I do. Where I'm at. Who I'm with.
Got it.
No, but my name is, here's a little thing.
I put that I value relationships with
So this was just a little bit of what Covey was talking about with habit 2, so beginning with the end in mind. We hope you guys had fun with it.
Anybody actually want to like give theirs? Share? Yeah.
I wrote down that God gave you talents to share with others, not for you to be afraid to share.
Has this been something recent or
I'd say probably when I first started getting into college, like it kind of just has manifested and like built upon itself. Just because, like getting into college, I was insecure about being who I was, and like just kind of wholeheartedly like letting my personality just kind of be who I am. And now I just got to the point where it's like, why should I hide who I am? Like if somebody doesn't like it, like it's their problem, not mine. I'm not going to change who I am for other people. So, you know, if people appreciate your personality, then that's even more of a reason for you to have them in your life. So,
Thank you, Sean, for sharing that.
I wrote down 2 Corinthians 5:7, which is walk by faith, not by sight. And I feel like if I'm just proactive, you know, and doing in all my decisions, that eventually, you know, like I will reap what I sow. And so just having a vision of just trying your best and trying to be Christ-like and just keep building that faith that everything in the world will follow.
Thank you, man. Yeah, so I hope that you guys take these with you guys, and not only for this class, but to reflect coming out of Westlawn and in life, just to hold true to the values that you guys hold today, and whatever may come forward, just to know that you have to stay true to yourself in order to be happy at the end of the day. Thank you.
Thank you.